Joe Biden is a guy that was running for president. Everybody find out Joe Biden's gone, baby. Joe Biden's no longer the Democratic nominee because people are too tired. It's Jover, but it's never Jover. Kamala Harris is now been tapped to run in his stead as the VP. It's the most predictable decision possibly made, not because it's like, wow, I've really got a deep sense for politics. It's just the most best placed person usually to become the next president is very often the vice president. It's why the system's set up that way, unless the vice president is insanely unpopular. So Kamala Harris will probably be debating Donald Trump once, maybe twice before the end of this. She will be having to name her own running mate. I've seen a lot of memes that it was going to be Joe Biden for VP, which would be the funniest fucking decision, period, but I don't think it's very likely. I have not looked into VP candidates this election cycle because we had one already kind of baked in with the candidacy that was being offered up. I've seen some selection. I think in my mind, people are saying it's going to be like a white guy. I think that is a good choice, not because they're white. It's just that's the largest pool to choose from. Maybe you do need to appeal to racial aesthetics to some degree, but I just don't see that being highly important. It's just the person that's going to have the characteristics that you're going to need for that is more than likely just going to be from a white Midwestern state. Kamala Harris is a Californian. She's got a lot of California vibes. She's got a lot of California history. That is something that's highly unappealing to the Midwest in general. People like Hollywood at a distance. You know, it's either you get on a bus and go there when you're 17, or it just becomes progressively more fucking irritating to you as time goes on. Midwesterners, and by Midwest in this case, I don't mean like the actual Midwest region. I mean all flyover states. You know who you are if I'm talking about you. Don't really have a lot of faith in coastal politicians. The coastal elite distrust is very, very strong throughout the Midwest, especially these days. Hillary Clinton's biggest failure as a candidate, in my opinion, as somebody from the regions that she lost, was that she sounds like a fucking condescending bitch a lot of the times, and you can't get past that mentality. She just comes off holier than thou, smarter than thou, richer than thou. She seems like she wants to wipe your state off her feet when she steps in it. And so she really did not connect with people that were really just starting to see the benefits of coming out of the 2007-2008 depressions that obliterated the rest of the Rust Belt and a lot of the Great Plains. She didn't seem like she had her fingers on the issues of people in these regions whatsoever. And even if she talked about them, it would feel like recited points. Kamala Harris is going to have that same sort of uphill battle. It's not because she's a woman or because any of those sort of moderate that dumb shit. It's going to be because she's coastal. She was the attorney general for California for years. She was a district attorney before that. She's basically been a prosecutor for a long time. So she has really good fucking understanding, more than likely, hopefully, on the legal system and the judiciary and law relative to that. She's probably going to be fucking insurmountable when it comes to those things. And she's probably going to have pretty good debate presence if she practices for it. Hopefully. If people are like, well, she might not do that good against Donald Trump, he's pretty charismatic. Like, yeah, the guy is the most charismatic person in the history of American politics after Teddy Roosevelt, basically. I can't really think of anyone else. It's like Teddy Roosevelt, Donald Trump, and then Barack Obama, as far as just like raw, melt you down through their sheer presence on the fucking stage charisma. Barack could have been higher if he also didn't have any reservations about saying the most psychotic shit that came to mind. He played with a handicapped. Donald Trump didn't. Teddy Roosevelt is Teddy fucking Roosevelt. No one can touch that. That's a whole different ball game completely. But yeah, so she might not be as charismatic as the guy on stage, but she's going to be able to answer the questions. And like I said before, with Biden, people just don't like Trump, and they want to know that when they give you the reins, you're going to be able to follow through on the things that are actually going to make shit happen for them. The way for her to shore that up is by finding a well-placed, non-judicial, non-executive copy type of practiced politician that's connected with people on the ground somewhere in the flyover states. I think Andy Bashir is a good choice, but that's because I know more about Andy Bashir than the other possible good choices there are out there. I have not had time to do an excessive amounts of research into this. It might be someone I don't expect at all. Andy Bashir also might say no. He seems actually pretty dedicated to Kentucky. He's not a highly cracked political actor, but she definitely is going to need someone that can actually connect with and be on the ground with people in the state. And she's going to need somebody that's particularly young too, because not literally for the physical advantage that them having to sell themselves as a candidate with like there's going to be extreme campaigning over the next couple months. I guarantee it, which is kind of slaps, because Biden already sort of needed to do that, but now Biden can be president, and this is basically a semi-incumbent with direct access to the presidency running against a failed president. So it's going to be an entirely different ball game as far as them going head to head is going to be. And now JD Vance has already been named as VP, and they can select somebody that can just slap the dog shit out of JD Vance, which is almost anybody. JD Vance is that same sort of person, by the way, for the Trump presidency. This is why Trump chose somebody like Pence. Trump is a coastal elite. He is rich. He is not connected to the issues of the middle class person. They just like the way that he talks about people they don't like. Pence was actually the governor, I believe, of Indiana before he got tapped for VP, and so he has a deep connection to that area. When he talks about stuff, people will feel connected to him. Your on-the-ground reps and shit can do a lot by handshaking and leading you in to talk to the people, but having somebody that's a direct connection to the cabinet, per se, will help alleviate the issues with the like big money donors gonna fucking, god damn it, it's Wall Street. So you want somebody that's not from like LA, Cali, coastal Cali, Silicon Valley, fucking San Fran, all the way down to fucking Los Angeles. You don't want a Chicago type person. You don't want a New York type person, kind of in general. You generally don't want Chicago. Like Barack Obama being a good politician from Chicago is crazy, because that is the school of being the most piece of shit Democrat you can be, is like Chicago and then fucking New Jersey. Shout out Menendez. I hope you rot in prison. But somebody from the middle states would be good. Unironically, somebody like a Fetterman would be a pretty solid secondary if he didn't have fucking a stroke at all. But like someone that's like that has good connection to like working class sensibilities and like can carry over the union message. That was one of the things that got really established with the address from Sean O'Brien to the RNC, is like, hey, motherfuckers, it's time to shit or get off the pot. Are you with us? Because if you're not with us, someone's going to be with us, and we're going to support whoever's with us, and we are not going to support whoever's not. That's a chance for whoever, especially I think this is going to be powerful for the VP, because the vice president in America, if you don't know, is the head of the Senate. They're going to be a deciding vote in a Senate that's very often gridlocked. So if it's a 50-50, they're going to be able to tell you what sort of senatorial legislation they will be supporting, that kind of shit. They're going to be running all of those things. They're going to be working in pocket with the president to carry out the president's work on the ground sort of throughout the country. A lot of times, this doesn't always break down like this, but a lot of times what the vice president does is domestic executive functions. So, or whatever the president's not doing, they'll do it. The president is more important, unironically, for outside of America type shit, because you don't want to talk to the vice president. You want the president to come and give a statement as the person that's talking to the head of state of another head of state. So that's what the president really has to do. And you also have to go inside the country, but the VP can basically do anything that the president's not doing. And if you see somebody like Bashir or something, you know, a Bashir type, somebody that's got good ground game in a mixed state. We have a red state, and Bashir won here, and not by being an absolute sellout to fucking Republicans. He's just hyper focused on working class issues and on ag issues and shit in a way that people are like, well, you know, we don't make money when a fucking governor that's on the red side. So we have a fucking Republican supermajority in the state house and the state senate, but we have a Democratic veto in the governor's house, and he beat a Republican last time. That's more complicated politics than I'll get into, but he still did a very good job running against Cameron before. I'm not saying he's going to be the best for the job. He might be completely looked over. He might never even be asked. But somebody that's got that sort of presence in the middle states and understands middle state issues, and not just understands them, but looks like they could understand them. When you have pictures of Kamala hanging out with celebrities, being connected to the presidency for the last 4 years, being an AG, being a cop, that has less presence with your average worker throughout the Midwest, throughout the flyover states, than certain other sorts of backgrounds. It's not completely insurmountable. That's just the most obvious gap that's going to exist. And when it comes to fighting JD Vance is going to be one of those guys. His whole thing is basically being a Yale guy. He's from Yale. Went to Yale. He's a fucking Ivy League dick sucker. Fuck that guy. But his whole thing is being an Ivy League educated dude who came from nothing. Not really the case. He just had a few hillbillies. He had to go stay at Mama's house and fucking wrote about how big of a hillbilly she is and called it Hillbilly Elegy. Fucking awesome. His whole thing is connecting to working class people by basically being a mouthpiece for like Opus Dei Catholicism or some shit like that. I can't remember what he's connected to. But his political prescriptions that I've seen that I can remember off the top of my head are psychotic, but they are things that working class people will gravitate toward before literally anything that somebody like Hillary Clinton would say dreamed up by a Washington fucking think tank, where they're like, we've seen a lot of blah 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 blah, and people are gonna be like, I don't know what the fuck you mean. I don't even know what that means. Whereas like Bashir and people like him that are equivalent, they're equivalents, and at the Senate or at the state and local and maybe to a degree the national level throughout the states, they're gonna have a lot of ability to fucking hit on those issues. You know what I mean? And that's gonna be a big deal. Don't forget when she was big chilling with Montel Williams. I can't even remember all the Kamala Harris stuff. She's just been such a non-entity for these last 4 years, which is good for a VP. Like, generally, you don't want your VP to be like super highly front-facing for everything. It's okay. The most front-facing VP in my history was fucking George W. Bush's VP, Dick Cheney. So, you know. He became Catholic to suck up to Teal. Jesus Christ. Heritage Foundation ghoul. Yes. Her mom ploy makes me cringe. There's a lot of cringe. There really is a lot of cringe. I remember Kamala being cringe as fuck back during the Biden run, but that's okay. The other thing we just need is somebody that's maybe got a little bit more personality. Prosecutors are like that. Lifelong prosecutor side politicians are like that. They are highly self-censorious. There's a very real possibility that Kamala Harris is a fucking live wire in private. I'm not going to name any names, but I've hung out with like senators, and I've gotten fucking drunk with politicians before a lot. And I stay cool, and they will be the most corny goof fucks and hilarious as shit in real life, like when the cameras are off, and some of their goofy alienness that you see before the camera, they actually is them having so much personality that the censoriousness of them leaves like next to nothing. They're just like a little paper bag of themselves, like yes. But really what's happening in their mind is that fucking like 7,000 horsepower engine is holding back them just saying the most insane shit you've ever heard. They literally just want to call somebody just every fucking word in the book, and they're just like, well, you know, I disagree. But if you know them personally and you see them actually having these conversations, like you're watching a 60,000 foot thick door have all of the water of the ocean just against it. You can hear the mountainside shuddering as they hold back what they're trying to say. And people that get into prosecutorial politics, because those start off as you get hired, then they go to like appointed, and then they become elected positions kind of at different rates and in different localities. They have to be very on the ball, more so than almost any other politicians kind of that operate at that level. You can be pretty fucking out of pocket as a city council member, and especially even as a state senator or a state representative. But like AGs have to be really, 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 really buttoned down, and they can't give their opinions on shit. And I think if you do that for a lot of election cycles, the practice that you do is going to be the or, you know, whatever you practice is how you're going to play. And so I think for them, they end up being like really, really tied back, because as a person running for city council, as you're trying to get legislation passed, you can be like, I don't know, man, I just want to feel like I think we should replace trash cans with just random Mexican immigrants with a bag, and they should just stand on the side of your house. You throw trash in them. You know, what was that psychotic shit this guy just said? I don't know. I just think maybe you see somebody up on top of a roof, you just want to take a shot at them. Just guess. I think we should call this the Assumed Mexican Act. Like, all right, well, that's the most insane shit ever. But you still won with a 5-point lead over the next closest person. I'm surprised. Whereas with prosecutors, in some cases, if it's like a red district and you're like a good old club boy, you can be like, oh man, I'll tell you what, there ain't no one's going to escape the long harm of the law with me. But you also can't be like specifically saying things about open cases and shit. And you do have to be a lawyer, because you can say shit running for office as an AG that will like fuck up your cases down the road. So they're all really, 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 really buttoned up. And when it's time to let their personality out, they more than likely have like, okay, so what am I going to be doing today? And they're like, you're going to be drinking orange juice. And the person's like, I don't know if I'm ready for that. That's a colored drink, okay? It's not like water. It's not clear. What if it spills on something? What if it's too tangy? Am I allowed to say like, after I drink orange juice? And they're like, you just need to not think about it too much. And they're like, I don't know if you understand this. All I am thinking about right now is how I have to drink this fresh Florida orange juice on this farm at 3 p.m. in front of 500 different cameras while I'm trying to run for the most powerful position in the history of mankind. I need to know how to drink the orange juice. And it's like, you can't tell someone to just drink it, because if they get two in their fucking head, they're just going to be like, and set it down. Like, what just happened there? What was that? You know, the politics is crazy that way. So somebody that can balance that out is going to be great, because sometimes it is really good. Not even sometimes, almost always, it's really good to have in your public platform somebody that is a little bit out there and more exuberant and talkative, and someone that's buttoned up. Trump was sold in 2016 hot off of having Mike Pence being the controlling force behind his presidency and being a reserved career politician that could curb the worst excesses of Donald Trump's politicking, to say the least. And unironically, he kind of was. Like, Pence was one of the last links we had in place keeping Donald Trump from fucking just actually successfully doing the first few stages of a full-on insurrection against America. He's like, I don't know if Mike Pence needs to he needs to do the right thing. Like, that was and Mike Pence did do the right thing, but not for Donald Trump. And then just very, very politely bowed and stepped the fuck out of the spotlight, which is the ideal for that sort of thing. If Kamala Harris wants to be buttoned up, tight, very direct, having somebody that's an exuberant, personality-driven type of individual with them could be helpful. And, this is all just brainstorming at this point. No one knows really what is going to be happening. Also, just so you know how to talk about it, I said this before, and people are very, very stupid sometimes. She is not yet the nominee, unless something has changed. She is not yet the nominee for the Democratic Party. She is the presumptive nominee, more than likely, because there's a consensus. Once they go to the convention and everyone says she's the nominee, they'll probably vote with their delegates like the primary does. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. At that point, she will actually become the nominee for sure. You can double check that with other people, because even I'm not 100% sure, but that would be my double check before I start saying she is the nominee. If you get confused about stuff like that, sometimes people just jump the gun and they start talking about things as though they're already established, and it's just not the case. And the reason to not do that is it can create severe confusion down the road, especially when you try to break down the timelines of stuff. Joe Manchin wants a mini convention. I think Joe Manchin just wants to kick some fucking dirt on the entire process before it goes off. More than likely, there'll be some politicking and stuff. I don't see it getting too fucking crazy. This is how, if you guys watched House of Cards, remember House of Cards? This is one of the ways that fucking Frank Urquhart Underwood in the American version became president, was through manipulation of one of the conventions that are like this and whipping the votes in his direction and shit. If I remember the plot points, it's been fucking a decade since that show was relevant or since I seen it, but I do remember that being a thing. It's a really good indicator of how strong she would be as a presidential candidate. If somebody else can hop in and steal it out from underneath her at this convention, that would be pretty crazy. I know it's like taking it out of the hands of the people, but a lot of the people that are at these conventions, if they're not directly beholden to elected officials, and if like there's not a lot of completely out of the hands of the American people type individuals at these places. It might be like, it'll feel like that because there are a few separate degrees of separation, but really this is where your elected representatives that are on the ground type people, your state and city and governors and your fucking actual senators and representatives and shit that have pull are going to be able to do shit about these. This is whipping votes. This is actual politics, where they're going to be like, hey, you need to do the right thing. I know I don't have to come in here and tell you, but blah, blah, blah. And there might be a bunch of deals going on. Hey, I want to know how things are going to be settled. It's a little chaos. I want to know that when everything settles, I'm going to be in this position as we go into a Harris presidency, right? Yeah, as we go into a Harris presidency, don't worry, I'm thinking of you. You're going to have this issue. You're going to have that. People are going to be vying for cabinet spots. People are going to be vying for appointee positions. People are going to be fighting for appointments for judgeships. There's going to be a person who's like, hey, I got like fucking all of these electors. Don't worry. They're all friends of mine. I know I don't have literal authority to control them, but hey, I'm going to make sure that they don't do anything stupid. People get crazy around these things. You know how it works, and I know too. I'm just actually calling because I want to make sure that you know that the 25th District Judiciary is actually up for appointment, and there's two people. They are both blue, but my friend Jeremy is running, and, I want Jeremy to definitely be in your mind when, the Harris presidency is confirmed here in November. Like, okay. Like, hey, I'm going to make sure that these votes happen for you, and I'm just double checking. Remember when we were talking about Ag Commission in here? I know that's not something you have any control over, but if you have any way to talk to this person over here, of that person over there, they're actually in charge of that appointment. If you could just make sure that they know that we're friends on this thing, I would be really, really, really grateful. Because, this is all going to go right for you, but I think there might have just been some confusion about that. And if you wouldn't mind just helping set the story straight, that's the kind of shit that's going to be happening here. And that's the kind of stuff that Joe Biden might have been seeming not fast on. It's not like the debate performance, maybe. That was actually what people are concerned about. It might be that he wasn't fast enough behind the scenes to do politics, which he needs to be doing. He needs to be able to hop on a phone and be like, hey, Macron, congratulations. Or no, yeah. Hey, Macron, congratulations on that election. It was a hard-fought victory. It was very good. I'm just calling to remind you that the president of Nigeria or whatever, he's calling up. We need to make sure that we talk that thing through. Things weren't going good for you with that whole deal, but we need to get the gears moving. And if I'm hopping on a call with whoever with Angela Merkel in Germany. I can't remember. I don't think Merkel is still the chancellor in Germany, but I'm hopping on the phone with Merkel, and you guys are trying to figure out where it's going, this and there, and she's already got a favor that she owes me. How about I make sure that some of this energy credit comes to you, and you be a little bit more polite and a little bit more forthcoming in your negotiations down there. Like, you need to be doing those phone calls every day. That's politics. That's what it is. That's why a lot of people get frustrated with it, because they can't fucking understand how all of the network of these deals not only is maybe it does keep people down and keeps them from rising up, but it also keeps the entire halls of power from always crumbling down on the heads of the little people, because the people that are up here and they've worked for 5 years, 15 years, 25 years to accomplish their thing, their bugbear, and it's within grasp, and all they need is a Kamala Harris presidency and a Kamala Harris handshake in order to become the judge in a district so that you can make this judicial reform that you've been campaigning on for 25 years actually possible. And it's not even you that's going to be there. It's going to be somebody else that gets appointed at that position. And then you're going to finally get these things done for your constituencies because that's what you live for. They're going to be like, I am hardcore for this. But when you take all that power out of the people's hands and just push it all up onto one person or to just a very, very small series of people, those networks break down and it becomes one person making decisions way too often. And eventually those networks of power reestablish themselves no matter what. But it makes it so that one person being at the top is completely the requirement for it, as not just like an auspice and a part of these massive webs of influence and favors and lies and cheats and steals and whatever. But it's politics, and politics is what it is. That is what Joe Biden needed to be completely on the ball about as an American president. And even when Donald Trump, people were saying Donald Trump's not about this, Donald Trump doesn't do the right shit. When his presidency was ongoing and you heard a lot of grumbling from his higher ups in his party, they'll do what they need to do to gain power because they're smart. They're political actors. But they are not going to be as supportive of him, and they're not going to be reliant on him to get shit done. They will actually have him in position so that he can sign the right bills and stuff, but never talk to him or get any of his prescriptions done. Donald Trump is, by the way, fighting for the most lame duck possible presidency. If it actually happened that he gets elected and we take the legislative branch, it might just be a 4-year bye, kind of in a general sense, until the next presidency came along, because it might be that people don't pay that much attention to him and that other, the judiciary is what it is, but it might be a moment where Republicans who can seize power are going to be like, hey, man, I have a gigantic chunk of authority I can get. It's not all of the authority, and it would never even lead to that, but it would be so much more by fucking this guy over. Why not do it? And that's a lot more of what politics is than just Joe Biden didn't look good in the debate, and so I can't be behind him anymore. People might give those reasons on the surface, but when you get behind the scenes, it might just be that they're like, Joe, you have to take the call from the people from Kentucky. Why did you, literally, I was relying on you to sound good in that, and you did not give them a lot of confidence that you could get shit accomplished for them for whatever they're doing for you ahead of the presidency, sending you some money, running ads, saying Joe Biden is the best possible guy for president. I'm out here on this ticket too. I want something for saying Joe Biden's the best guy for presidency. What are you going to give me? And then if you're on the phone and Joe Biden sounds like, I just need you to understand it. 2008 was a great year, and I'm going to get for you what we can. If that happened, that makes a whole lot more sense than there was a bad debate performance and everybody started doing pee pants. They'll probably tell you that, and you get a report. Actually, we did a poll of the sitting senators, and 85% of them said oh no, that's what it was. And then if you look behind the scenes the day before the poll, hey, we're getting a poll about this, and if you're part of these caucuses, what we're trying to show is part of our cohesiveness. We need you guys to vote that this thing was specifically the reason, because we want to have a unified message that specifically was why we were nervous about it, because we don't want anyone knowing that Joe Biden made this mistake behind the scenes, or that we were worried about something else, or that whatever. We're going to take a hit on this looking facile. So these caucuses, you guys, 5 or 6 people we're not doing that. We're going to say we have our other reasons. We're not hopping in that vote. Fuck you then. Yeah, fuck me, but fuck you too. Fuck you. And then so it ends up, that's what you see. 85% of them polled said this is the reason. And then they have to own that for the rest of their presidency or the rest of their fucking, political career. But it's just an aspect of what it is. There's mechanisms behind the optics. It goes very deep. It goes very fucking deep. Very fucking deep. All the way through. Hope you enjoyed your
down on the west side.